Life sometimes takes us down unexpected paths we never anticipated. This is the story of Raymond, a 30-year-old bus driver whose life took a profound turn thanks to a small dog and a decision he never imagined making. Raymond lived alone in a bustling city, far from his peaceful rural hometown where his parents still resided. After graduating with a degree in accounting, Raymond was optimistic about securing a stable job in his field. However, the job market was not kind to him. After months of fruitless searching, he was left without the opportunities he had hoped for. Faced with family pressure and growing anxiety about his future, Raymond reluctantly took up a job as a bus driver. Although the job was far from his dream, it provided him with a modest income. He consoled himself with the thought that at least he had steady work. Yet, the long hours driving through crowded city streets left him feeling like his life was slipping by, monotonous and unchanging, day after day. One rainy morning, as Raymond stopped his bus at a station, a small dog suddenly appeared by the bus window. Raymond glanced at the dog with curiosity. The little creature seemed frantic, standing still in front of the bus and looking up at him as if pleading for help. Despite not being particularly fond of dogs, Raymond felt an odd sense of urgency in his eyes filled with patience and hope. The rain poured down, drumming against the glass, yet the dog's gaze shone like a beacon in the gloom. It didn't seem scared, but tapped gently on the bus door with its paw, as if signaling to Raymond. The sound of claws scratching the glass felt like an urgent call, momentarily making his heart skip a beat. Raymond hesitated. Looking around, he noticed the passengers on the bus glancing at their watches, visibly impatient. These were his regular commuters, individuals who could become his loyal customers, all silently urging him to stay on schedule. Some sighed audibly, others fidgeted in their seats. Everyone had somewhere to be, jobs to get to, classes to attend, important meetings they couldn't miss. Raymond could feel the mounting pressure, a familiar weight he carried every time he drove the bus. He looked back at the dog. It had started pacing near the bus, its distress palpable. Yet, Raymond's fear of jeopardizing his job loomed large. Any delay might lead to complaints to his employer, potentially putting his position at risk. Keeping the bus schedule was paramount in his line of work, and any deviation could spell trouble. Raymond thought about the countless hours and effort he had invested in securing this job, which was his lifeline in an expensive city. Losing it would leave him adrift, uncertain of what path to take next. Glancing in the rear-view mirror, he saw the passengers' expressions growing more tense. The pressure was suffocating, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that the dog needed his help. Was it in danger? Was it trying to lead him to something urgent? Each time he met the dog's gaze, Raymond felt a strange compulsion, as though the little creature held a secret that he was destined to uncover. A part of him wanted to continue his work, to drive and get his passengers to their destinations on time, but another part couldn't stop thinking about the dog. Could he just ignore it? Could he live with himself if he turned a blind eye to a vulnerable life pleading for help? The sun had yet to rise, and the rain continued to fall, but within Raymond's heart, the dog's eyes had already compelled him to make a decision. As the voices of impatient passengers echoed from the bus, Raymond knew he had to choose. Yet, in that very moment, he realized something profound. Sometimes, the toughest choices our life's way of testing us, forcing us to confront things we never anticipated. Ignoring the complaints and frustrated stares of the passengers, Raymond quickly jumped down from his driver's seat and onto the wet pavement. Though his mind was racing with worry, his body moved on its own, driven by an invisible force urging him to act. The little dog circled around his feet, looking up at him with desperate eyes, then immediately dashed down the street as if leading the way. Raymond hesitated for a second, questioning what he was doing, but he pushed the doubts aside and followed the dog. There was something in its urgency, its intelligence, and its resolve that he couldn't ignore. The dog led him across the quiet street, running quickly as though it knew exactly where it needed to go. They covered about 50 meters before finally stopping at a narrow, dimly lit alleyway between a fish and chip shop and an old newspaper stand. Standing at the alley's entrance, Raymond could hear the dog's labored breathing, as if it was filled with intense worry. He hesitated briefly before stepping forward, but just a few paces in, he saw a sight that made his heart stop. At the far end of the alley, a young woman was crouched on the cold ground, writhing in pain. Her labored breaths came in short gasps as her hands clenched at the weeds along the curb. Her eyes were wide with panic and fear. She was pregnant, her belly visibly swollen, and between her legs the dampness on the ground indicated her water had broken. A sign that labor was imminent. She couldn't stand, her body trembling with the intensity of the pain, and her feeble cries of distress pierced Raymond's heart. The little dog moved frantically around her, letting out soft barks, as if unsure of what else to do besides stay by her side. Its eyes were full of worry, and it let out a whimper before turning back to look at Raymond, as if pleading for help. This scene left him no time to think. He rushed toward the woman, pulling out his phone to call 911. "Help! A pregnant woman's water just broke and she's about to give birth," Raymond said urgently, his eyes fixed on the woman writhing in pain before him. He tried to stay calm, but the sound of her labored breathing and faint cries left a lump in his throat. The dog didn't leave the woman's side for a second. It continued to circle around her, nudging her hand gently with its small nose, as if trying to lend her strength. Raymond took a deep breath, glancing around once more, knowing he had to do everything he could to help her, even though the situation was far beyond anything he'd ever prepared for. Moments later, the wailing sirens of an ambulance shattered the tense silence. Raymond watched as the emergency vehicle sped to the scene, and paramedics jumped out to assist the woman. Lather was standing, grinning, and squatting between Dave and his wife. They quickly transferred her onto a stretcher and whisked her away to the hospital. The little dog, still anxious, stayed close and followed its owner into the ambulance. Raymond stood there for a moment, his heart still heavy with worry. Before Raymond could breathe a sigh of relief, a police officer appeared, walking toward him with a serious expression. "Hello, sir. I need your help to clarify this situation," the officer said, his suspicious gaze briefly scanning Raymond before shifting toward the alley where the incident had just occurred. Raymond took a deep breath and began to explain. "I was driving the bus when this dog ran up and looked at me like it was asking for help. It just stood at the door, tapping its paw on the bus window. At first, I thought it was begging for food, but it seemed very distressed. Everyone on the bus was urging me to drive on, but I felt something was wrong, so I decided to get off and follow it." He paused for a moment, recalling the events as though they were a dream. It led me to an alley. That's where I found this woman. She was in labor. Her water had broken and she was in severe pain. If it hadn't been for this dog, I wouldn't have known what to do. The officer studied Raymond intently before nodding. Thank you for your help. The woman has been safely transported to the hospital. The thing is, no one seems to know who this dog belongs to. No one has come forward to claim it. Raymond looked down at the dog, which was now sitting beside him, its breath still coming in quick bursts. The feeling of unease hadn't entirely left him. Honestly, I've never been much of an animal person. But Raymond trailed off, his gaze meeting the dog's eyes. But I think it might be part of the reason I'm standing here right now. I'll take it and... The officer followed Raymond's gaze to the little dog, sitting obediently. He bent down and noticed a faint engraving on its collar. Chico, Raymond murmured, reading the name. Chico, is that it? The officer raised an eyebrow and then looked back at Raymond in surprise. So, you're going to take it? Thank you. This dog has helped a lot of people today. It might have even saved that woman's life. Raymond stood up, his eyes still fixed on the dog. I think I need it too. I'll take care of it for sure. The officer gave a slight smile and patted Raymond on the shoulder. Well, congratulations, Raymond. Not everyone would have done what you did. Good luck with your new companion. Raymond turned to look at his bus, now eerily silent. The passengers had already transferred to another vehicle. No one remained on his route. He stood there for a moment, feeling as though everything in that instant had come to a standstill. The scene around him suddenly felt empty, leaving only him and the bus in the cold, rainy morning air. As he stood there, lost in thought about everything that had happened, even though he had saved a life, he couldn't shake the worry about being reprimanded or possibly losing his job. Suddenly, his phone buzzed in his pocket, startling him. Raymond quickly pulled it out, his eyes still lingering on the bus, now standing abandoned in the lonely drizzle. He glanced at the screen and saw his manager's name appear. He held his breath, gripping the phone tightly. I'm definitely about to get scolded, he thought. I broke protocol and disrupted everyone's schedule. Raymond answered the call, his voice trembling slightly. Hello, sir. Raymond, could you come to our office immediately? The manager's voice cut in. We need to talk. A surge of anxiety filled Raymond as he quickly drove to the company's office, imagining every possible reason he might be fired. But as he stepped into the office, where the manager and some colleagues were already seated, the atmosphere was nothing like he expected. Raymond, I want to congratulate you, the manager said, looking at him with genuine admiration. What you did was commendable. Not only did you save a life, but you also ensured that little dog found safety. Raymond was stunned, unable to believe what he was hearing. What? I don't understand. The manager smiled and nodded. We value employees like you, those who are willing to step up when needed, even if it's not always convenient for the job. Moreover, your story has garnered community attention. We've decided to make you the face of the upcoming public campaign for our bus company, aimed at encouraging staff and passengers to prioritize safety and community care. Raymond stood there in shock, unable to process what was happening. He glanced around and saw everyone in the room applauding him. They even presented him with a small trophy as a token of appreciation. We want you to be a role model for other drivers. Your actions have set a great example and can spread a positive message to everyone, the manager added. Raymond couldn't believe that a simple act of kindness had earned him such recognition. He felt proud of doing the right thing and deeply appreciated being acknowledged in a way he had never imagined. After being recognized and becoming the face of the bus company's public campaign, Raymond felt a newfound sense of purpose. Not only was he proud of what he had done, but he also felt inspired to do more. A part of him wanted to continue helping, not just a little dog, but also any living being in need of aid. With this in mind, he started volunteering at the local animal rescue center. It was an unexpected path for him, but one that gave him a profound sense of fulfillment and purpose. One day, during a volunteer meeting, the rescue center received a tip-off about an illegal puppy mill operation. The facility wasn't just exploiting animals for profit, but was treating them as mere commodities, with no regard for their health or well-being. Dozens of dogs were confined in horrific conditions under the guise of a breeding operation. Raymond, with his experience and determination, was immediately entrusted with leading a rescue mission to free the dogs trapped in a truck loaded with these suffering animals. The dogs were kept in deplorable conditions, cramped spaces with no access to water or food. They were chained, their eyes filled with fear and pain, enduring a life devoid of freedom or care. When Raymond and the team of volunteers approached the truck, he could feel the misery and pain in the faint barks coming from the dogs inside. He immediately instructed the rescue team to open the truck doors and begin the operation. Each dog was brought out. Some were on the brink of exhaustion, while others were panicked, scurrying around in search of safety. However, what horrified Raymond the most wasn't just the scene in the truck. As he stepped into the breeding facility, he was confronted with unimaginable cruelty. Narrow cages, a complete lack of medical care, dogs suffering from injuries and diseases, and severe neglect were everywhere. The air was stifling, filled with an overwhelming stench, and the environment was utterly unfit for any living being. With determination and compassion, Raymond led the volunteers in dismantling all the cages and transporting the dogs to safety, where they would receive medical attention, care, and the chance to find new homes. He also documented the conditions with photos and detailed notes to provide law enforcement with sufficient evidence to take action against the operators of this illegal breeding facility. The dire state of the dogs and the cruelty they had endured left Raymond seething with anger. He couldn't fathom how these innocent creatures had been subjected to such horrific conditions, all for the greed of heartless individuals. From that moment on, Raymond's resolve to protect animals deepened, and he became a vital part of campaigns against illegal puppy mills. Thanks to his efforts and the support of the community and volunteers, Raymond helped transport the dogs to rescue centers, where they were nurtured, treated, and matched with loving families. Those animals were no longer trapped in fear, but were given a new chance at life, filled with love and care. Though Raymond achieved significant success in rescuing animals and saving dogs from the cruelty of puppy mills, his actions didn't come without consequences. His efforts drew the attention of those running the illegal breeding operations, people who saw animals as mere tools for profit. They were not willing to accept defeat, and Raymond's interference had clearly unsettled them. One evening, as Raymond was driving his bus home after a long shift, he received a call from an unknown number. A raspy, menacing voice spoke on the line. "You shouldn't meddle in our business anymore. If you keep pushing, Don't blame us when something bad happens to you or your loved ones." A chill ran down Raymond's spine. He wasn't the type to be easily intimidated, but this threat wasn't something to dismiss lightly. He knew these people wouldn't hesitate to resort to heinous acts to protect their profits. In the following days, Raymond began to notice suspicious signs. Once, while driving the bus, a mysterious black car followed him throughout his route, pulling up whenever he stopped. When he turned onto a quiet street, the car suddenly halted, and a strange man got out, approaching Raymond with a menacing expression. He said nothing, just stood there, glaring at Raymond with an intense fury, before returning to the car and driving away. Such incidents became increasingly frequent. Raymond started to feel that he was being followed and pressured, and he grew fearful for his own safety and that of his family. Although he had never imagined that his work rescuing animals could lead him into such dangerous situations, he now understood that, in the battle for innocent lives, he was up against ruthless individuals willing to do anything to protect their interests. One evening, after a long day, Raymond returned home and immediately felt something was off. The living room window was wide open, and the house was eerily silent. His heart raced as he sensed that someone had broken in. He rushed to grab his phone to call the police, but before he could do anything, a man suddenly appeared, covering his mouth with a powerful sedative that caused him to pass out instantly. When Raymond regained consciousness, he realized he was trapped inside a vehicle, unsure of where he was being taken. His kidnappers said nothing, leaving him in a state of panic. Fortunately, his loyal dog Chico was the first to sense something was wrong. The dog ran off to alert the animal rescue group members. Upon learning the situation, they immediately contacted the police and launched a search. After a tense pursuit, the police managed to rescue Raymond in time. The kidnappers paid for their crimes, and Raymond was taken to the hospital for care. Lying in his hospital bed, Raymond's vision blurred from exhaustion and pain after the horrific experience. But when he saw Chico standing by his side, his eyes brimming with emotion, an unfamiliar warmth spread through his heart. The dog's gaze held not only concern, but also a strong determination, as if it didn't want to leave his side for even a second. Chico had found him when all hope seemed lost, and from that moment on, Raymond felt the unwavering loyalty Chico had for him. He couldn't believe that it was this small dog, whom he had once considered a sweet but unimportant companion, that had saved his life. Hearing the story of how Chico had risked his life to alert the rescue members, almost being hit by a car on the way, Raymond felt a lump in his throat. The dog had never stopped watching over him, displaying an intelligence and decisiveness he had never recognized before. At that moment, all Raymond could do was look into Chico's eyes and feel something deeply profound, an unspoken gratitude, an exchange of affection that only beings capable of unconditional love could understand. Raymond couldn't help but reflect on the saying he had often heard, "Save an animal, and it will repay you." He had once thought of it as a flowery sentiment, but now he understood its meaning more than ever. It was because of Chico's loyalty and unconditional love that the dog had done the unimaginable, alerting the rescue group and bringing him back from the jaws of death. It was a repayment not just by chance, but by the sincere friendship this dog had for him. At that moment, Raymond realized that animal rescue wasn't just about helping other creatures. It was about the bond between humans and animals, a connection deeper than any words could express. He felt incredibly fortunate to have a friend like Chico, and it only strengthened his resolve to continue his work. From that moment on, Raymond knew that the love and loyalty Chico had shown him had changed his life forever, and he would always fight for voiceless creatures like his dog. After enduring the trials, dangers, and intense moments, Raymond decided to quit his job as a bus driver and become a full-time animal rescue coordinator. He felt immense support from the community and animal lovers, which further solidified his belief that he was on the right path. This new job not only brought Raymond joy and fulfillment, but it also made him realize that his life had completely changed. He was no longer just a man doing a simple job. He had become an integral part of the animal protection campaign, helping innocent creatures escape cruelty. His life was now filled with purpose, and every day he felt that he was contributing to making the world a better place.